fallout, smoke, women crying for their sons because their sons are not, Romans killing riotous groups that are rising up. Free Judea, free our people, autonomy for Israel. You had Herod and Edomite and his dynasty. Herod's ruling, killing any potential threat, any potential Messiah. Then you had the Pharisees and the Sadducees that we learned from Josephus are not Jews by birth. No.
Right? Now look at these. I'm telling you, I got to show y'all. A picture speaks 1,000 words. Just look for yourself. And this is the creme de la creme. All praises be to the Most High, y'all. Everything we've been through, y'all, the Most High is going to retribute it on all the nations that have had a hand in the oppression of his apple, the apple of his eye, his chosen people, his beloved, his fervent lover, his only begotten. They're going to have their part in the lake of fire. You see them tormented by some kind of creature. I don't even know what that even is, y'all. Judgment. In chains. He that led into captivity shall go into captivity. All praise to the Most High, y'all. It said, thou that dwells in the clefts of the rock. Whoa. I know a lot of y'all know about the Caucasus Mountains. Let's just let the words speak. Let's go to verse 4. Though you exalt yourself as the eagle, and though you set thy nest among the stars. What's up, Zion Dynasty? This is your favorite dreaded Israelite, the man, the myth, and the legend, Mr. Brandon Justline Benzai, RJB Zion. Y'all show me some love, show me some love. Welcome back to the channel, Zion Dynasty. First, I want to say peace, love, blessings, and black power to the chosen race of the Most High Yah, all my Hebrew Israelite brothers and sisters. I also want to extend a warm shalom, peace, love, blessings to all my Gentile supporters, those that are sojourning with Zion, sojourning with Israel. And we gonna jump right into it, y'all. Before we get going too fast, you guys don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe. We're dealing with our Esau series. It's a lot of information, you guys. I'm really trying to go into a lot of these deep hidden books, apocrypha, to link Esau to Rome, to modern Europeans. So we've been talking a lot about this, guys. We started with the prophecies. Y'all check out that Hitler video where we talked about, y'all understand, how Esau is the end of the world and Jacob is the beginning of it that follows. We looked a little bit in the book of Obadiah where it says, though you set your nest in the stars, right? The verse before that said, you that dwell in the clefts of the rock, right? We saw all these different prophetic imageries that are showing a specific people that the Bible says would exist in the end of days prior to the return of Yeshua. So Esau's descendants would be the last ruling empire before Christ comes to establish his government. They will be known for living in places like Mount Seir or the clefts of the rock. This people would set their nest in the stars and they would exalt themselves as the eagle. We looked at the curses of Deuteronomy 28, that a nation would come as swift as the eagle flies. Now this is starting to look like a country. This is starting to look like a specific people. So this will be the last world empire. It will be a superpower of a people. They would have been dwelling in the clefts of the rock. They would exalt themselves as the eagle. They would set their nest in the stars. We looked at Neil Armstrong saying the eagle has landed. There's
Tranquility Base here. The eagle has landed.
There's so much prophecy to prove that Esau is linked to the ancient European Greco-Roman people and the present day Europeans, right? We looked at the fact that Esau would have a perpetual hatred for Jacob. In Ezekiel 35 verse 5, we saw this. In Ezekiel 36, we see that Esau would part the Most High's land. In Malachi chapter 1 verse 4, the Most High says that Esau is the very border of wickedness. That when you want to define what Israel is, what evil is, Esau is the very border of wickedness. Esau is the definition of wickedness. The people that the Most High would have indignation for forever. In Romans 9:13 it says, for Jacob have I loved, But Esau have I hated. The Most High was angry with Edom because of the hatred that they display for our people, y'all. Throughout history, Edom has always oppressed God's people. When the temple fell, when the temple was destroyed by an Edomite, Vespasian, the Roman, the other Edomites were saying, race it, bring it to the ground, right? Esau has always had a hatred for Jacob. They are a cleft of the rock dwelling people, a people that have set their nest in the stars. This looks like Babylon the Great, the United States of Babylon, and the European market companies, the European Union, the European rulership of this world. Now, we saw that in 2nd Ezra chapter 6, Esau would be the end of the world and Jacob would be the beginning of the world to come. The world to come was synonymous with the kingdom for Israel, right? So when you see John 3:16, we talked about this, you guys, when it says, for God so loved the world, you have to know Isaiah 45:17 that said, Israel shall be saved in the Lord with an everlasting salvation, world without end. If I'm talking about SeaWorld, I'm not talking about Mufasa. If I'm talking about the NBA world, I'm not talking about Michael Vick. You have to know the context. World speaks to kingdom or government, right? So Esau would have their chance in the sun to rule, and they would be the last ruling empire before the Most High establishes his kingdom using his people, Israel. So we went through a lot of that stuff, you guys. We talked about how Rebecca, she couldn't get pregnant in Genesis chapter 25, and that Isaac sought the Most High Yah, and the Most High Yah answered Isaac and opened her womb. But during Rebecca's pregnancy, she had a lot of pain. She had a lot of internal struggling she felt. She was like, what is going on? And she sought the Most High, and Abraham and Shem were able to talk to her and said, let's let you know a secret. The reason you're struggling is because there's twins inside you. There's two nations. And how can your belly hold these two nations when the whole earth is not going to be big enough for them two to dwell peaceably? We went to Genesis 9. Now this kind of got kind of deep, y'all. In Genesis 9, Noah speaks the prophecy on Ham, Shem, and Japheth. He says that Canaan would be a servant to Shem. This is why the land of Canaan was promised to Israel, right? But we also see that the Most High would enlarge Japheth. Japheth is the European countries. How did they get enlarged? Well, Esau's grandson Eliphaz in the book of Jasher migrated to Europe and became a war hero. They later made him king. We're going to go through that history in detail. And he became one. His descendants became one with the Chittim people. Who is Chittim? Ancient Rome, ancient Macedonia, right? So the Gentile countries, the European nations, became increased by Esau's descendants. Jacob would dwell in a lot of Hamitic borders. Our people were in Egypt, our people were in the land of Canaan, and we overtook Africa. So you have Israel, who's predominantly in Africa and in the land of Canaan, and then you have Esau that had Amalek in Canaan and had a lot of his borders in Europe. And these two titans of a nation, Jacob, the Negro, Hebrew, Judean Israelite people, versus Esau, the Roman, European people, these two mighty titans would battle to the end of time until Jacob eventually gains superiority and the older brother Esau serves Jacob. So y'all check out all those videos. I know it's a lot of information. We're having to establish this groundwork, so when I connect this history of the Roman Empire with Esau, it'll make a lot more sense. That Esau today is a lot of these European people, right? Not all. I say that because you look at Blake Griffin's son or somebody, and they might look European, but this is where you have to know the power of genetics. I know a lot of people have been arguing about that with JB, you saying somebody could be like 99% white, and 1% their father's father was black, and they're an Israelite. Bingo! That is scientifically proven. See, let's deal with that for a second. A paternal haplogroup is a way to test your father's lineage. A maternal haplogroup is a way to test your mother's lineage. According to scripture, a person is defined as an Israelite by their father. And I'm going to prove that because I made this statement and a couple of y'all tried to come for me. When you look at Joseph, Joseph's wife was Paneah, the Egyptian. Joseph was given his wife in Egypt. His wife was an Egyptian woman who is the mother of Joseph's 2 children. Now, a lot of y'all might be wondering who is Joseph. Joseph is one of the 12 sons of Jacob. He is the 11th son. Benjamin is the youngest. So Joseph, the one that was sold in the pit, ends up with an Egyptian wife, and she gives birth to Ephraim and Manasseh. Judah, we see in Genesis chapter 40 or 41, Judah's first wife was a Canaanite woman. When we look at Moses, Moses' wife was an Ethiopian woman. Why do I go through this? Why do you go through this, JB? Because what you guys are saying that, well, it has to be 2 Israelites, then Joseph's seed would not be Israel. Moses' seed would not be Israel because they had strange wives. Their wives were not Israelites. But we know that Moses' lineage was Israel, and we know Joseph's lineage was Israel. We know Judah's lineage was Israel. So what I'm saying is, according to scripture, Numbers 121 and these examples I just listed, you are an Israelite by your father's pedigree, right? Now, the Most High commanded his people not to marry strange women. This is why the kingdom split during Solomon's time. And Solomon is another example who had a son with Queen of Sheba, Menelik, who was in Ethiopia. So the Most High didn't want our people to do that, not because just they were different people, but because they had different gods. He wanted Israel to marry in the stock of their own people. So I'm not encouraging foreign marriages, but I am saying that Israel, if your father's an Israelite, you are an Israelite. So Blake Griffin, even though his son might look Caucasian, Blake Griffin's dad is a Negro. That baby is an Israelite. Or Joseph's sons Ephraim and Manasseh would not be Israel, right? And I know a lot of y'all talking about the Mamzer thing. I'm gonna do a follow-up on this. The reason I bring all these things up is because when we're understanding Jacob and Esau, we have to understand that Jacob would be a mixed-in people. Esau would be a mixed-in people. So you can't just say all white people are Esau and all black people are Jacob. You could have some people that look black, but their father's lineage goes back to Esau. It just is. Herod is an example of this. Herod looked like he was an Israelite. His dynasty married a bunch of Israelite women, but we know his heart was wicked towards our people because his father's lineage went back to Rome, i.e. Esau. So you can't just look at what a person looks like, because what we will see is that to know who Jacob is, it's a spiritual thing at the same time. But what we can say is, for the most part, Jacob or Israelites are a Negroid people or Negroid descendants. Esau's people today are a red Caucasoid people. And we're going to go through more of that history. So, on the last video, you guys get this book, The Legend of the Jews. In The Legend of the Jews, we learn a lot about Shem talking to Rebecca to let her know about her having twins. We see that Esau is said to be the father of Rome. I showed you guys the classical baby names book. In this book, if you look up Esau, it says that Esau is said to be the forefather of Rome. Through his grandson Zepho, Esau had a son named Eliphaz, who had a son named Zepho. Zepho ended up moving to Chittim after he was siding with the king of Angeas, the father of Hannibal the Great in Africa. After he got pissed off with that guy because he wouldn't go to war against Israel, he went and made an alliance with Chittim, or the ancient Roman people. This is the history of how Esau became Rome and Europe, and these became the white people. So we're going to go into that history. I'm just kind of letting you guys know. And our people continue to mix among the Hamite people, continued to pass as the Egyptian people. And during times of crisis, we would go into Africa, and that's all the stuff we've been talking about the Igbo, the Yoruba, the Moroccan Israelites, the Sephardic Israelites. This is how we ended up there, because our people are known to go into Africa. So Esau's descendants went into Europe, our people went into Africa, and that's where Esau came and got us as swift as the eagle fly. All praise to the Most High Yah. So we talked on the last video a lot about how Jacob finessed, which his name means to finesse or supplant. He finessed to get the birthright. Now what we know is that the Lord had already told Rebekah that Jacob, or the younger, would be over the older, and that the older would serve the younger. So it wasn't really that Jacob was stealing it per se, because it was always a part of the Most High's plan for him to be blessed. This showed itself by, see, a lot of people argue about God's sovereignty or his predestination versus our free will. They both work in tandem. They both work together. We have free will as much as we can choose. We just, whatever you choose, just live. But the Most High has already created us and knows in advance what we are likely to do. So predestination isn't the Most High saying, I'm just going to send these people to hell and these people to heaven. He says that because he already knows what's in you and what choice you're going to make. So Esau, the Most High knew that no, something ain't right about Esau. Esau despised his birthright. Esau did not honor the Most High Yah. Esau did not consider the spiritual ramifications, but when his flesh was hungry, he sold his spiritual mandate for some food. And the Most High had known that from the beginning when he said, nah, the older gonna serve the younger. So when Jacob finesses Esau, and we read in Genesis chapter 27 how he dresses up like Esau and gets the blessing, and when Esau comes, Isaac is shaking. He's like, I thought you were Jacob. I thought Esau had just come. And then Esau cries, y'all. He says, Father, bless me, even me. And we see the blessing that Isaac gives to Esau. He says, yeah, you're going to live in the nicest place in the dew of heaven, but you're going to live by the sword. And in the end, you're going to be uprooted from heaven and you're going to serve your brother. So Esau gets vengeful, and Esau says, I will kill this Negro. And he has this perpetual hatred that he even is able to teach to his kids, that we're going to see with Zepho, that Zepho doesn't forget what they did to his father. Zepho doesn't forget what they did to his grandfather. So Esau has this perpetual hatred because Jacob finessed him. But what we need to understand, we saw in the Legend of the Jews that Jacob and Esau would both be worlds unto themselves. That Esau would have a rulership. Esau was blessed, y'all. You got to understand, Esau is a Shemite. Esau has the chosen lineage working for him as well. So the Most High honored Esau by giving him this age that we're living in today. But he promised that in the end, our people, Yoruba, B'nai Ephraim, that Israel would rule the earth, world without end, right? So we got next. I'm just saying. So Esau, right, felt some type of way about the whole thing, even though he would dwell in the fatness of the earth. It was a curse at the same time, because Isaac said, you're gonna live in the fatness of the earth, but you're gonna live by your sword. And we know that's a curse, because when you live by the sword, you die by the sword. And what people on earth, now we already talked about the eagle that came in to steal our people. We talked about Edom exalting itself as the eagle. We talked about Edom dwelling in the clefts of the rock. We talked about Edom being the last world superpower before Christ returns. Who does this people sound like? Now we're talking about Edom living by the sword, and everywhere they would go, they would conquer. Everywhere they would go, they would get the best place, because they would kill, they would genocide, they would put smallpox in the blankets. What people fits the totality of all these prophecies? The same way we talked about the prophecies of Israel. You have to look at the prophecies. Our people fit Deuteronomy 28 like a silver shoe. Esau, these white folks, fit these prophecies about Edom like a silver shoe. And what we're going to see is that history and prophecy comes together when finding out that Esau is Rome and Rome are these modern Europeans. And I ain't even talked about the Colosseums, the House, the Senate, all of this that came from the Greco-Roman people that America and Europe does today, right? So before we go there, we're going to go back to Genesis, and we're going to deal with Esau again. So I think we talked about it where Esau vows to kill Jacob. Jacob ends up fleeing and wrestling with the angel and saying, "Help me, Lord, help me." The Most High changes his name to Israel, and this is where we get the Israelites from. Jacob's name being changed to Israel, he had 12 sons who are the Israelites, and we descend from the 12 sons of Jacob. So Jacob's name is changed to Israel. He eventually has a peace agreement with Esau, but Esau's heart isn't right. Even with their agreement, Esau has war in his veins, because what happens is, we read about in the book of Jubilees, we read about in the book of Jasher chapter 47, how Jacob had an agreement that Esau, now when our daddy died, you gonna give me Canaan. You gonna give me that whole region. I'll let you have everything else. Because Jacob was low-key afraid of Esau anyway. But what we saw was that when Jacob died, his last request was that his son Joseph buried him in Canaan, the land of Israel. Because they were living in Egypt during the time of the famine, because Joseph had got a good spot for his family, right? And the Egyptians, they loved Joseph, they loved his family and that kind of thing, and they allowed Joseph to take the bones of Jacob to go bury them in Canaan. But while he's going to bury his father, while they're still mourning, Esau shows up at the entrance of Canaan. Now y'all, this is where we talked about some deep stuff about Israel, us as so-called black people, white folks being Esau. When Adam and Eve were kicked out of the Garden of Eden, y'all check this out. An angel was sent to guard that land to keep us from coming back. The scriptures prophetically call Satan the anointed cherub that covers. Ezekiel said, "You were that cherub in the garden." Now check this out. So Satan, or that spiritual angelic being, was said to be the chief principality over that land. Now what we have is Esau now stands as a hindrance to keep Joseph, who is an Israelite, son of Jacob, and his brethren from using the death of their father to give them the right to that land. Esau is standing as a hindrance. When we look today, the Ish people, a lot of these Ashkenazi families are descendants of Esau. And just the way we dressed up like Esau to get the blessing, now they wear the black hats. Now they coil their hair like locks. And they stand in the entrance of the land of Israel to keep the true Israelites from returning. This stuff is powerful, y'all. They guard it because they are the synagogue of Satan in Revelation 2:9 and 3:9 that says those that call themselves Jews and are not. Understand, you'll never find an Israelite call themselves a Jew. You'll hear them say Judah, and if they say Jew, they say Judah. But I don't even call myself Judah because y'all have seen that based on DNA, I'm more linked to Ephraim, Northern Kingdom. So Israelites don't even call themselves Jews. So when the scripture says those that call themselves Jews and are not, but are the house of Satan, they are the spiritual extension of Satan, that anointed cherub that guards the promised land to keep the children of Israel from turning back and going back to Eden. This stuff is deep, y'all. I hope y'all get something from that. So what we have going on is Joseph says, okay, you want to let us do it? Naphtali. Naphtali was the fastest of the 12 tribes. That brother could get it. That brother could run from Canaan back to Egypt on foot. So Joseph said, yo, Naphtali, go get the court records. Go get the little brown book where we got all our documents. We got all our history. We know who we are. We know our heritage. We know the price that Jacob paid for us to return to this land. So Joseph leads this initiative as a prince to stand against Satan's descendants, Satan's seed, who is trying to keep Israel from that land. So Naphtali is going to go get the paperwork, right? So Joseph stands there and Esau gets pissed and somebody buck and they break out fight. So they fight, Naphtali come back, he be like, oh shoot, they fight. So Israel start fighting against Esau. They start tunning and Israel start waxing them. right? So Israel started waxing it behind, right? I mean, our folks always been tonners. Our folks always been tonners. We always been doing anything, right? So Israel, we doing our thing, we holding it down. And one of the blind Israelites, are deaf, I think he couldn't really tell what was going on. He said, what's going on? What they doing? And one of the Israelites tell this cat, they said, oh yeah, they fighting because Esau don't want to let us bury our father. And dude takes a sword, runs up to Esau like a G, and slices that dude's head off. Now y'all can read about this in the book of Jasher. I'm telling you, they took a lot of these books out. In the book of Jasher, chapter 56 is where you can see this history. So dude slices that nigga, he slices Esau's head off, right? And Zepho sees this. Now Zepho is the grandfather of Esau. So Eliphaz is Zepho's father, and Eliphaz was the son of Esau. So Zepho sees this and gets another anointing. And Zepho starts going in. Almost turned the tide, where Joseph said, we're gonna have to capture Zepho. And y'all can read about this in the book of Jasher. So Joseph and the brethren take Zepho back to Egypt with them, and they keep that dude as a servant. So he that led into captivity shall go into captivity, right? And it's this constant reversal of roles, because now our people have an Edomite in slavery. Y'all remember that Vornay, keep that in mind. But eventually Zepho would break free. He would end up going to Chittim, and he would vow that he would seek vengeance against Israel. So right now they're in Egypt. Joseph and them have these cats. They have them under lock and key. And some kind of way, after Joseph dies, after all of that generation is done away with, the patriarchs, the 12 sons, Zepho, who they have locked away, finds out that ain't nobody there to guard him. And he breaks out of prison. And Zepho then flees. He first flees to Angeus. He goes to Angeus, the king of Africa. And we can read a lot about this in the book of Jasher. And he tries to get the king of Africa to fight against Israel while they're in Egypt. The king of Africa has a sorcerer that works with him named Balaam. Now y'all might know about Balaam in Numbers. Balaam does some witchcraft, some necromancy. It says, I don't think we need to go to war against Israel. And King Angeus of Africa says, I'm sorry, Zepho. We know you're a great warrior and all, but we ain't finna do that. Zepho gets pissed and Zepho goes to Chittim, right? So this is why you have some Edomite influence. Some people say that there is some African Esau influence, because Esau was there in Africa, but he later went to Chittim or Rome. So while he's in Rome, he makes an alliance with the Chittim people, and the Chittim people have a problem on their hands. The Romans have beef with Angeus in Africa. Now y'all, I know this is a lot of history. Y'all just stay with me. I'm gonna do some rehashes on this stuff. But basically, let me stop doing it with my, y'all, okay. But basically, they have a beef with the Africans in Angeus, because Angeus is known to go and raid Chittim. But Zepho had just been down there with the Africans, so he knows how they get down. So he shares all their war plays, all their tactics with the Roman people, the Chittim people. And they wax them Africans, right? Now later on we'll talk about Hannibal. I'm gonna do a different video. Hannibal of Carthage in Africa, the son of Angeus, ends up becoming a legend, the legend of legends. But during this time period, Zepho is able to free Chittim and they elect him as king, right? So now we see that Zepho becomes the king of Rome, but not just that, over the entire Mediterranean area. Now Zepho then becomes the leader of Rome, and this, my friends, is the birth of Zeus. When you look at Greek mythology, Zeus is supposed to be the god of gods and Mount Olympus. When you look at the region that Zepho went to, let me make sure I got it right. In Jasher chapter 61 verse 12, Zepho, this is when he goes to Chittim, and the island region is known as Mount Cuptavia. Now if you looked up, or let me make sure, Mount Cuptazia. If you look up Mount Cuptazia, you're gonna run into Mount Olympus. So we have this Zepho that comes as this warrior, this thunderous militant general that comes to Olympus and just is able to defend and reign as a god for the Roman people. How was he this skilled? Because he knew the playbook of Angeus in Africa. So their greatest fear was Angeus. Then this ex-Angeus just dude comes out of nowhere and is fighting like he just knows everything. You see where I'm going? This is the birth of Zeus, the god of gods. Zepho and Zeus is synonymous. When you look at all these sources I showed you guys, Esau, specifically Eliphaz or Zepho, is said to be the founder of the Romans. So this ancient Roman heartbeat of Greco-Roman mythology of Zeus, this god of gods, is linked to Zepho, who shows up in Mount Cuптizia and just destroys all the enemies of Rome, and they make him a king. This is the history. Zepho, Zeus, Rome, Europe, Greco mythology, all of this is linked to Esau. Just like our people are an African, Hebraic, Israelite people, this same thing was going on in Europe with Esau's descendants. The rise of that power, the rise of that world, that European power construct. So, you guys, I hope you guys got some. I know it's a lot. I'm gonna go back through this stuff in each video, do a rehash. But this stuff is deep that connects Esau to Rome. Esau is linked to the European power construct, the 10 toes of NATO on the statue of Daniel. All of this is Edom, who is going to be the last ruling empire before Christ returns, the Messiah for the Hebrews, and judges Esau and all these nations and raises us up, returns us to the land, and we rule as a world without end. So with that, y'all, I hope you absorbed all this history. I know it's a lot, but now that we know we're Israel, we need to know who our greatest adversary is, and it'll help put things in perspective. So with that, y'all, peace, love, blessings, and black power to the chosen race of the Most High Yah, even the sons and daughters of Zion. I love you all, my Zion Dynasty family. Be blessed. Shalom. All praises.